Hey Refuge Church, I'm so excited to be with you guys. We are starting a new series. It's just 4 weeks long in the month of September. We're going to be talking about the biblical holidays that happen during this month. I'm very excited to share with you all about what we're doing, but I'm going to pray first. God, I thank you so much for this opportunity to look at different stories in your text and return to these cycles that you have asked us to observe. I pray that our minds and hearts might be open and attentive, that we might learn and truly hear what it is that you have for us this week, that we might be people who are known by our celebration and people who you can count on to know how to party the way that you told us to party. I ask all these things in the name of your son, Jesus. Amen. All right, so biblical holidays. In Judaism, they're called the high holidays, but these are not just Jewish holidays, right? They're biblical holidays. We won't be doing appropriation, won't be telling you how to do different customs and traditions that are done by the Jewish community that belong to them. But what we do want to do is we do want to look at what the Bible has to say about these holidays. So you might not know the holidays of Christmas and Easter, though technically there's nothing wrong with them other than consumerism, are actually not mandated in the Bible, right? But there are holidays that are told by God to his people to do forever and ever. And whether or not you believe that's a command or an invitation is up to a different conversation about theology. But what I want to invite us to this week is to say that if God asked his people to observe certain holidays signify and symbolize different themes, right? So what are the themes in the month of September as we get geared up in a new school year, we get geared up starting a new academic year? What are the things that God wants us to be aligned in as a community as we get rocking and rolling? Let's see. The very first holiday in the set of high holidays in Judaism is called Rosh Hashanah, which just means the head of the year, and it's celebrated as the new year. However, that comes from Babylonian tradition. God is very clear in the Exodus, in the scroll of Shmot, that the start of the year is actually at Pesach, at Passover and Easter. So in the biblical year, we start in the springtime. So we are in the 7th month in the lunar calendar, just so we know what's going on. In the Bible, it's not called Rosh Hashanah. It is called Yom Terua. Yom means day and Terua means trumpeting. In Leviticus 23, we get our instructions for what this holiday, this Chag is the word for holiday, is all about. And it says that Yom Terua is to be a day of Shabbaton, which means a day of rest, and a Zichron, which means a day of remembrance. I know it's a lot of Hebrew. We're gonna steamroll through it in just a second, and if you want to see some of the words, you can check the PDF in the link down below. Okay, so it's a Shabbaton and a Zichron, so it's a remembrance or a memorial. A remembrance or a memorial of what? Of trumpeting, very specifically. Okay, what trumpeting is it that they remember? What's the first time? What's a major episode in Israelite history where they have trumpeting? What might be the thing that they're supposed to remember every year, every fall, every autumn? Well, we are going to look at Exodus 19. We keep coming back to Shmot. We're never going to leave. Just kidding. But it is a really great story. And so I'm going to walk us through it. There are like 6 different angles to take with this story. And maybe we'll do that in the years to come. But right now we are just going to walk through this text together as it is and see what it is, what themes God invites us to, and our practice of resting and remembering trumpeting, as Jesus would have done every year, by the way, with Jesus followers. All right, Shemot 19. In the 3rd month to the day since the sons of Yisrael left the land of Mitzrayim. Mitzrayim is just the Bible's word for Egypt, but it means very specifically a narrow, tight place. Left the place where they felt narrow and trapped. They came to the desert of the moon. Your translation probably says something like wilderness of Sin. Sin is the Sumerian and Akkadian god of the moon. And so when we see Sinai and Sin, we've left it untranslated because we don't want to look like pantheists and confuse everybody. Oh no, but it is the desert of the moon. Why might that be, that all this took place at the moon? In the cultural milieu, the sun stood for justice and action, and the moon, Sin, so Shamash is justice and action, and you keep it that way because he goes up every single day, faithful, and he watches over everything in his course. So that's why Shamash is connected to justice. But Sin is connected to wisdom and creation. So God brings his people, he leads his people into a place in the cultural milieu they would have recognized, that reminds them of who created them and reminds them that it's a place of wisdom rather than action and justice. All right. So they came to the desert of the moon. They journeyed from the place of, if you translate it, spreading out. That word that probably didn't get translated in your Bible is just spreading out. So contrasted to tight, narrow space, a place where you can spread out. And they came to the desert of the moon. Yisrael camped there against the mountain. Moshe went up to God. It does not say he went up the mountain, by the way, which is very interesting. So traditionally, we think that he climbed up and down and up and down and up and down this mountain, but later we see records of the mystical experiences of Jewish people as they connect to God. We see that in Ezekiel. It just says he had a vision. So it's possible that Moshe is having a vision rather than walking to wherever God is. So Yisrael camped there against the mountain, and Moshe went up to God. God called to him from the mountain. Okay, so maybe he's having a vision of the mountain and he hears God's voice coming from it, or maybe I'm wrong and he's actually hiked it. I'll put a image in the PDF so you can see what the mountain may have looked like. It would be pretty gnarly to climb. God called him from the mountain to say it like this to the house of Yaakov and explain it to the sons of Yisrael. You saw that which was done to Mitzrayim, to Egypt. I lifted you on the wings of eagles. God's a Tolkien fan. That's a joke. Don't email me. And brought you to myself. Now, if in listening, you listen in my voice. It's a little divergence here. If you're into hearing God speak to you, that might resonate with you. In listening, you listen in my voice. We come to God, we listen, and then while we're listening, we still have to be present and pay attention, and then we feel like we're in the flow of his voice. Might be your experience, might not. Continuing. And guard my covenant. You will be my treasured belonging out of all the peoples. I interrupted the text too much, so I'm going to read that verse again. Now, if in listening you listen in my voice and guard my covenant, you will be my treasured belonging out of all the peoples. Though all the land is to me, you will be to me a kingdom of priests and a nation set apart. That's also Peter tells the Gentiles that we are also, as part of God's people, still the kingdom of priests. These are the words you are to speak to the sons of Yisrael. And if this is confusing as I'm going back from phone, translation is also in the PDF. This is a great week to read the PDF, so you can keep up with the translation. All right, Moshe went. Good job, Moshe. He called to the old ones of the people, one of which who was a woman, by the way. He placed before their faces all of these words that Yahweh decreed. All the people answered together and they said, all that Yahweh has spoken, we will do. Right on, no plot twists. Moshe returned the words of the people to Yahweh. Again, it does not say that he climbed a mountain. Just putting out there. Yahweh said to Moshe, look, I come to you in a stepped cloud, that when the people listen and obey when I speak with you, that they might also trust in you to eternity. All right, so your translation probably says a dark cloud or a heavy cloud. There's words for heavy, there's words for dark. It's not that one. It's an architectural word that for steps that you would take to get up onto a porch. which is super cool, right? Imagining clouds forming steps, right? That's a really obvious, visceral image. The rabbis in the Midrash, which is just ancient Jewish teaching about the text, connect this story to the Jacob's ladder story through one of the shared words there. There's a lot that we could get into, but we don't have time. So if you are curious, you can start puzzling that out on your own, but obviously as well, the steps connect with Jacob's ladder, right? All right. Moshe told the words of the people to Yahweh. Good job, Moshe. Yahweh said to Moshe, go to the people and set them apart. Another way to translate that, if you're into Christianese, would be make them holy. Okay, that just means set apart, so I'm going to keep translating it set apart because we have lots of baggage around what holiness is, right? Okay, so go to the people and set them apart today and tomorrow. They must wash their dresses. Yes, it says dresses, not clothing. The men wore dresses as well, and us editing that out to put in clothing is an amusing attempt at making the Bible look more like our culture and our norms of masculinity. Okay, they must wash their dresses and be set up by the third day. For on the third day, Yahweh will descend in the eyes of all the people upon the mountain of the moon. Make a boundary around the people and say to them, guard yourselves that you do not go up the mountain nor touch its edge. Anyone who touches the mountain dying, they will die. It's a shout out to the tree of life, right? Dying, they will die. Let not your hand touch it, for he will be stoned or shot and will not live, whether human or animal. When the horn blasts, when the trumpet blasts, they may ascend the mountain. Okay, so here's the thing. Make a boundary around the people and tell them, don't touch the mountain until when? Animals are included in that, by the way. All through the text, we always see animals included in all the covenants and instructions, almost as if they matter and are not just resources for eating. Okay, and then when the horn sounds, everyone gets to go up. Everyone ascends together. So what's the prohibition then around the mountain? Why can't they touch it for these 3 days until they all go up together? When we have the piece of information that everyone's supposed to go together, suddenly it doesn't look like God's presence is so terrible and fierce and scary that he'll kill you if you go up the mountain. I mean, he is saying that you will die if you go up the mountain, but it's not because God necessarily is of the essence of just anger and destruction. It's because he wants everyone to go together. So if you can imagine a community, you have a community and everyone's trying to be obedient, right, and do their best and follow instructions. And then you've got Jimmy. I don't know who Jimmy is, but Jimmy decides he's going to go and he's going to sneak up the mountain first. He's going to go up on the first day, come back down on the second day and be like, y'all, I saw God already all by myself. And guess what he said? He told me that y'all should give me all your money. For instance, right? You could do a whole host of things. If anyone is allowed to go up that mountain by themselves, other than Moshe, right? They have the responsibility. They can make up whatever they want. And so God, in my opinion, is saying, absolutely not. Y'all need to go together because we are not tolerating anyone like buying clout and being like, oh, I didn't mean to go, but then I sleptwalked and God told me I'm extra holy now and y'all should worship me, right? God's like, absolutely not. I don't care who's trying to go up that mountain. I don't care if it's a cow. Ooh, golden calf, right? I don't care. Somebody tries to go up there on their own, you kill them, period, right? God's very clear. And how does that change our image of God if that's what his heart is, not just God is this crazy, like destructive, scary guy that nobody's allowed to go to? That ignores the we're all going to go together part, right? So let's read carefully. All right. So we've got a stepped cloud, we've got all the people going up, but they have to wait 3 days. And God says that everybody needs to wash their dresses to get ready. So Moshe descended from the mountain to the people. He set them apart. Good job. They washed their clothes. Good job. He said to the people, be ready on the third day. Do not draw near to a woman. Wait a second. Pause, red light. We are doing so good, Moshe. We've got set them apart. Check. Wash their clothes. Check. Be ready. Check. Do not draw near to a woman. Moshe is always throwing in these extra things, right? God said whoever comes first from the womb is the firstborn, the special Bechor with these special responsibilities. The Hebrew word there is Bechor. With a special role to play. And Moshe comes down the mountain, and because he's doing the best he can in his patriarchal, misogynistic culture, he says, every male. The word switches. That's why we should read carefully and know the Hebrew and etc. Right? So here, we don't need to know the Hebrew. We just need to pay attention. God never said anything about sexuality, which is what's implied here, right? Or about women. That is not what it takes to be holy, is putting women away or putting sexuality away. That is completely man-made. And how often do we like to set up false rules and false narratives about what it means to be holy, what it means to be set apart, and the boxes you need to check in order to be able to draw near to God. So that's not new. It's been going on forever. It was BS then, and it's BS now. Just being clear. All right. On the morning of the third day, there was thundering. Technically, it says voices, but it's next to lightning, so it's probably thundering and lightning. But it's cool if that jives with you to imagine voices. Okay, morning of the third day, there are voices or thundering and lightning and a heavy, glorious cloud upon the mountain and a very strong voice of a shofar. Shofar is just a kind of trumpet that's made from a ram's horn, which goes back to the story from Abraham, symbolizes salvation, and the fact that we don't need to kill one another in order to find peace with God. All right, so he said, when you hear the trumpeting, you can go up, right? That's what we heard earlier, so that's what we would expect. There's thundering and lightning, heavy glorious cloud on the mountain, and a very strong voice of trumpeting. Do the people go up? Instead, it says, all the people in the camp trembled. From the camp, Moshe brought out the people to call God, which I love. It's not some to cast themselves upon the name of the Lord or something. It's just to call God. That's all it says. Brought out the people to call God, and they stationed themselves under the mountain. There's a bunch more thunder. There's much more lightning. There's different conversation that happens that we don't have time to fully go through the whole thing. But basically, they won't come. They're too scared. They're standing at the bottom. God says, at least get the priests to come up here. And Moshe says they can't. The priests can't come up here. Verse 23, Moshe said to Yahweh, the people are not able to come up to the mountain of the moon. For you repeated to us, make boundaries around the mountain and set it apart. Now pause. Is that what God said? Check the PDF. Check your memory. What did God say to put a boundary around, and what are we supposed to make holy and set apart? Was it the mountain? No. Going back, he said, make a boundary around the people and say to them. Your Bible might have taken some creative license because they think the story makes more sense that way. Which I have some feelings about, but it says make a boundary around the people and say to them, guard yourselves that you do not go up. It says to wash your dresses and set yourselves apart, not the mountain, not the mountain, not the mountain. So Moshe has misunderstood. He says what God said to do wrong. We have, again, a fall allusion, a fall analogy there, right? And here Moshe is being the serpent. Did God really say that? Twisting the words, right? Yahweh meets us all the time where we are. So he's tried to get the priests to come up. Like, these people are supposed to be representing me to the people. At least get them up here. Moshe says, nah, man, they're not going to do that. And so God says, fine, but bring Aharon up here at least, Aaron, Moshe's brother and right hand, the high priest, at least the head of the pastors, right? At least the head of the clergy needs to get up here with you. And then he reiterates and makes the rule that, okay, if it's just going to be Aharon and Moshe up here, then you better not be letting Jerry in again. Dang it, Jerry. Stop trying to make up your own cult, right? So he resets the line. if not everybody is going to come up here, then it needs to just be y'all, so that we don't have some weird inequality happening about who gets to listen to the voice of God. So that's the story of Exodus 19, right? So how often are we the people of God in this story? We just finished this sermon series. We talked about mental health and emotional health and spiritual health and wholeness and well-being and all this great stuff. And at the end, we spent all this time talking about different spiritual disciplines and the fact that there's lots of ways that God might have made you to connect with him and have relationship with him. And you're invited to try out these different practices. I'm guessing that more than a couple of you listened to all that and went, wow, that's so cool. There's so many cool things out there that I could do. That's great. Oh yeah, I feel like I totally know a sensate. Oh, my friend so-and-so is a enthusiast. Oh, my dad was always a naturalist, whatever. And then, oh, I think I'd probably be a contemplative. And then we left it there. And if you have trauma going on, if you have deep things that you're still working on because of suffering that happened in the church and in yourself and you're still working through that, you have all the space in the world. You're welcome here. No one's going to shame you for not reading. You're doing your spiritual disciplines. That's not the point. The point is, so often we are totally content to disqualify ourselves and to say, that looks crazy. There's thunder and lightning and the voice of God going on. I think I'll just stay back here and let y'all handle that. So often we're okay with doing that. Say, y'all go first. I'm good. And then we never follow. We never try it for ourselves. We never have this amazing, crazy, incredible experience in which she gets to see the face of God, right? That's what the people are missing out on in chapter 19. Because they're disqualifying themselves. Because they're living in fear instead of trust. There's lots of things going on, which Moshe didn't help, by the way. How often do we put boundaries around God, right? Moshe said, you put boundaries around the mountain. We can't go up there. Not put boundaries around yourselves to make sure Jerry doesn't sneak through, or Jimmy. Either of them, both sneaky. How often do we put boundaries around God and Jesus when there are none? And the Spirit, by the way. And say, oh, that's for people who have all their crap together. It's a close one. That's for people who don't have anxiety and depression. I do, so figure that out once we're stable. How often do we say, that's for people who haven't done what I've done? That's for people who don't have the past that I have. That's for people who aren't feeling like their lives are falling apart. I don't have the space to meet with God right now. That's a boundary that we are placing on God, that God has not put on us, saying that he is set apart. God is not set apart, right? God is in the midst of us. He dwells within the midst of us. He says, you are my treasured possession. He comes down and wants to be with us. And we come up with this whole structure saying that he's far off. He's not far off. There's no boundary around him. We are invited. So stop putting up boundaries where there aren't any. Stop looking to your leadership and saying, they've got this one. I'll just hang back. That all sounds great, but it doesn't apply to me. It does apply to you. You're invited. Stop ding, 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 making up random, either misogynistic or sexual ethics as a border that, again, also doesn't exist. Moshe just pulled that out of his back pocket, right? Just like he pulled out firstborns have to be males. It's not a thing. God didn't say it. Moshe did. And maybe it was an okay idea. Who knows what they're all up to? But we need to pay attention to what does God say and what did the leaders of God's people say? And do they line up? And if they don't, why? some of us still are carrying those ideas, purity culture ideas that we heard about sexuality, about modesty, whatever it might be, and we've set it up. Oh, I would be able to draw near to God and be in his presence and celebrate and go up the mountain when the trumpet blows, but I've done this, or I made this choice, or I have this identity. Man-made, not God-made. And that's good news. Really is good news. Hear that, legalists? Some of us would prefer it not to be messy on top of the mountain, right? Sounds good. Yeah, only the priests. That's great. People have their stuff together. Yeah, that's clean. That's orderly. Nobody's like vaping in the corner. That's nice. Nope, that's not what God's community is like. It's messy and everyone's invited. All right. Spiritual experiences are for you. Holiness is for you. Conversations with God are for you. You, not for somebody else. Exclusively. We see this again, 1 Thessalonians 4, right? When it's talking about the last days, the trumpet shall sound. This is the shofar. It's the image from the story. And first the dead get to go, and then the rest of us go as well. And it says, everyone who is alive, which doesn't sound very exclusive to me. It doesn't say, unless you happen to draw near a woman. We won't even talk about what's the case if you are a woman. Everyone who's alive will go up and meet Christ, right? 1 Thessalonians 4, check it out. All right, so you are qualified because of the love of Jesus. You are qualified, you are invited, you are holy enough to come into the presence of God. So I hope and pray that this Yom Terua, which if you care, starts this Tuesday, Wednesday, the 6th, whichever day the 6th is. It starts, a holiday is called, in Hebrew, a Chag. Chag means a circle, and that both has to do with the circle of the year because time is cyclical in Hebrew thought, but also because when we dance in Hebrew culture, we are dancing in circles, circle dances, holding hands, right? So I hope that as we start up this academic year, as we go into fall, as we take this time to look at these different biblical holidays, that each one is happening this week. I'll preach on it, it happens. Next one, it's going to happen right after I preach on it, right? So that we can meditate on those things, not appropriating from Judaism, not exoticizing another religion, connected religion, rooted religion, sure, but rather as Jesus did, as he was on this earth, as a brown Jewish person, by the way, just putting out there. What is it that God has called us to remember? Zichron, so you rest and remember. We're invited. Don't miss out. All right, guys, I'm going to pray. You can give at refugepullman.com. You can sign up to join us online at refugepullman.com. You can sign up to join us in person at refugepullman.com. Head over there. It's got everything you need. Translations, questions for discussion, contemplation are all in the description below. I'm going to pray and let us go. God, I thank you that you have designed a calendar to remind us of very specific lessons that you would have us to walk in. I pray that we would not intellectualize and say that applies to everybody else but me, but that we would hear your call. We would hear the trumpet. Even as we go into worship or whatever we're going to do after we listen to this online, that we would hear your voice saying, come up, come see me. I love you. You're invited. You're not excluded, no matter who has tried to exclude you. And I pray that we would answer yes, that we would be able to navigate whatever obstacles or walls that we have put up, and whatever saying yes looks like for us, that we would move forward into that. I thank you that the gospel is for everybody. I thank you that you're not exclusive. I thank you that you've designed these structures to make sure that we are all included together. So I pray blessing over Yom Terua this week coming up, that we would find a little way to celebrate and be in community. I thank you for all these things. In the name of your son, Jesus. Amen. All right, you guys, happy Yom Terua. Have a wonderful week. Enjoy the start of the school year, all of the above. Talk to you later. Bye.